He found a video that shattered his entire life. But what if the person you trust most is hiding a secret so dark it could destroy you? Tonight, a single choice will reveal everything or bury the truth forever.
The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and old magazines, a place designed to calm nerves but somehow sharpening his instead. He sat beside his wife, close enough that their shoulders almost touched, yet the space between them felt wider than the room itself. She stared at her phone, thumb hovering, not scrolling, not typing, just holding it as if it were a shield. He watched the way her jaw tightened every time a nurse called another name, and he wondered when her silence had started to feel like a warning. This appointment was her idea. She had insisted he come, saying it was nothing serious, just routine. Still, she hadn't met his eyes once on the drive over. He told himself it was stress, work, life, the 1,000 excuses married people learn to accept. But as minutes dragged by, unease settled into his chest, heavy and persistent. He tried to remember the last time she'd laughed without restraint, the last time she'd touched him without hesitation. When the nurse finally called her name, she stood too quickly, nearly knocking her chair back. She hesitated, glanced at him, then nodded as if granting permission. Inside the examination room, the light was too bright, the walls too white. The doctor greeted them politely, scanning a tablet, his expression professional but guarded. Questions were asked, dates were mentioned, symptoms listed. The husband listened, his mind tracing invisible lines between words. Then the doctor paused. He looked up, confused, and asked a single clarifying question, one that should have been simple. The answer required a date, a moment in time. His wife answered too fast, then corrected herself. The room seemed to tilt. The doctor frowned, tapping the screen again, and gently explained that the timeline didn't align with what she had previously reported. It was said calmly, clinically, but the implication landed like a blow. The husband felt heat rush to his face. Numbers echoed in his head, rearranging memories he had trusted. Anniversaries, trips, nights spent apart, all reshaped themselves into something unfamiliar. He turned to her, searching for denial, for anger, for anything. She stared at the floor, breathing shallowly, her fingers digging into her purse. The doctor excused himself to retrieve a file. The door closed softly behind him. In the sudden quiet, the husband noticed her hands shaking. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and began deleting messages with practiced speed. One name flashed briefly before disappearing. He didn't recognize it, but the urgency told him enough. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Please, not here." He realized then that this room, with its sterile calm, had become a courtroom, and he was both judge and witness. His wife finally looked at him, eyes wet, pleading for time. He understood with cold clarity that time was the one thing already lost. The silence pressed down, demanding answers dared speak. The door opened again. The doctor returned, file in hand, his face now careful, almost apologetic. He took a breath and spoke, choosing his words with precision. What he said confirmed what the husband had already begun to fear. Whatever this appointment was meant to address, it had just exposed a truth their marriage could not survive. They left the clinic without speaking. The sunlight outside felt intrusive, almost mocking, as if the world hadn't received the memo that something irreversible had just cracked open. In the car, the engine ran while they sat frozen, hands inches apart on the console, strangers bound by years of shared life. He waited for her to explain, to lie, to cry, to do anything. She only said she was tired and asked him to drive. That night, he replayed the doctor's words again and again, stripping them of tone, searching for loopholes. Dates didn't bend no matter how he rearranged them. The math stayed cruelly consistent. He lay awake beside her, listening to her breathing, counting seconds between inhales like evidence markers. When she turned away from him in her sleep, it felt deliberate, rehearsed. In the morning, she moved through the house carefully, like a guest afraid of overstaying her welcome. She showered with the door locked, something she had never done before. Her phone never left her hand. When a message vibrated across the screen, she flinched hard enough to drop it. He pretended not to notice, but his mind was already building theories faster than he could control. He began noticing patterns, errands that took too long, appointments she couldn't reschedule, a new passcode on her phone. The name of a contact surfaced repeatedly in notifications before disappearing just as fast, always saved under something meaningless. He told himself it was work, a friend, anyone harmless, but his gut refused comfort. That afternoon, while she napped, he stood in the doorway watching her sleep. She looked peaceful, almost innocent, and that frightened him more than anger would have. He wondered how long someone could live with a secret before it changed the shape of their face. When her phone buzzed again, he didn't hesitate. He picked it up, heart pounding, thumb hovering over the screen. He didn't unlock it. He didn't need to. The preview was enough. A message asking if everything was okay and reminding her that the doctor wasn't supposed to say anything. His hands gold cold. The air felt smaller, the room smaller. Someone else knew. Someone else had been there before him. When she woke, he asked casually about her day. She answered smoothly, too smoothly, like someone reciting lines already practiced. He nodded, played his role, and suggested dinner out, somewhere public. She agreed with visible relief. In the bathroom hallway, he overheard her whispering urgently into her phone. Her voice shook, stripped of the calm she wore for him. "I don't know what he knows. Just don't contact me for a while." There was a pause, then softer words he couldn't hear. When she emerged, her face was pale, smile forced. On the drive home, he said nothing, but inside, something had shifted. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake. Pieces were moving without him, and he was only now realizing how far behind he was. As he pulled into the driveway, he made a quiet decision. If the truth wouldn't come to him, he would go looking for it himself.
He didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, he let routine become camouflage. He kissed her goodbye, asked about groceries, commented on the weather, all while watching her with sharpened attention. The decision he'd made in the driveway hardened into purpose. He needed to see what she wouldn't show him. 2 days later, she said she was meeting an old friend after work. The lie was casual, delivered without effort, which almost impressed him. He followed her at a distance, keeping 2 cars between them, heart thudding each time she checked her mirrors. She drove past the places she usually went, crossed into a quieter part of the city, and finally parked near a row of dim storefronts. He watched from across the street as she stepped out, scanning the sidewalk before walking quickly toward a narrow office building. The sign outside was generic, deliberately forgettable. A man was already waiting near the entrance. He stood with his back to the street, hands in his pockets, posture tense. When she approached, he turned, and something in her body language changed instantly. They didn't hug, they didn't smile. They spoke close, urgently, heads bowed together. The man reached out, gripping her wrist, not gently. She pulled back, whispering something that made his jaw tighten. From where he sat, the husband couldn't hear words, only tone, but it was enough. This wasn't romance, it was leverage. The man was older than he expected, his face lined with stress rather than age. He wore professional clothes, neat but rumpled, like someone who slept poorly. As they talked, he glanced around repeatedly, eyes sharp, alert. When his gaze swept briefly toward the husband's car, the husband ducked instinctively, pulse racing. They separated quickly. She entered the building. The man walked the opposite direction, disappearing down an alley without looking back. The husband waited, forcing himself to breathe, then followed her inside. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and paper. Doors lined the walls, each marked with small plaques. He stopped when he saw one name he recognized from paperwork she'd once brought home. He didn't go further. He didn't need to. He understood enough now to know this man wasn't just someone from her past. He was embedded in her present, woven into the lie that had begun unraveling at the clinic. The realization settled heavily, bringing not clarity, but dread. That night, she came home late. He pretended to sleep as she showered, as she paced quietly, as she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. When she finally lay down, her breathing stayed shallow, uneven. He waited until he was sure she was awake. "Who is he?" he asked softly. She froze. The silence stretched until it hurt. Finally, she whispered a name, barely audible, as if saying it out loud might summon consequences. She told him the man was involved in something she couldn't explain yet, something that started long before the doctor's appointment. Her words were careful, incomplete, shaped to control damage. "Does he know about me?" he asked. She hesitated. That hesitation was everything. Tears slid silently down her temples as she turned toward him. "If you push this," she said, voice breaking, "people get hurt." The husband stared into the dark, feeling something inside him harden. He understood then that the secret wasn't buried anymore. It was alive, watching them, waiting for exposure. The weight of that warning pressed into every corner of the room. He thought of the doctor's careful tone, the erased messages, the way fear had replaced affection. Nothing about this felt accidental anymore. Whatever bound his wife to that man had rules, consequences, and an ending none of them were ready to face. It was already moving. Somewhere across the city, the man in the shadows checked his phone, read a message, and muttered under his breath, "If he finds out, we're both dead." The warning didn't leave him. It followed him into the morning, into the kitchen where she moved quietly, avoiding sudden noises, avoiding him. Silence had always existed between them, but now it felt engineered, reinforced, like walls added after a crime. He watched her pour coffee she didn't drink, toast bread she didn't eat, performing the shape of normalcy with careful precision. Their marriage, he realized, had been built less on shared truth and more on what was never questioned. He had been proud of that once, of how little they fought, how smoothly life seemed to run. Now he saw it differently. Peace hadn't been earned, it had been maintained by omission. He had confused her compliance for contentment, her quiet for trust. As the days passed, memories resurfaced with new meaning. Moments when she'd withdrawn after arguments, when she'd apologized too quickly just to end discomfort. Times she'd agreed to decisions she clearly didn't want. He called it compromise. He wondered now if it had been fear. The thought unsettled him, forcing him to confront his own role in the shape their marriage had taken. That evening, he decided to confront her, but not with anger. He waited until the house was dim, the world outside quiet enough to feel contained. She sat on the couch, knees drawn up, television flickering without sound. When he sat beside her, she flinched before she could stop herself. "I know there's more," he said calmly, "and I know you think silence will protect us." She stared at the dark screen, reflection fractured. "It's not about protection," she replied. "It's about survival." Her words landed heavier than accusation. She began to speak slowly, choosing phrases like stepping stones. She talked about pressure, about mistakes that didn't feel like choices at the time, about someone who helped her once, then never stopped reminding her of it. She didn't say the man's name. She didn't have to. He listened, torn between sympathy and resentment. Every explanation felt incomplete, curved around something sharper underneath. When he asked why she hadn't trusted him, she closed her eyes. "Because you don't forgive weakness," she said softly. "You correct it." The truth stung because it rang familiar. He saw himself then, not as a villain, but as a man who believed control equaled care. The silence between them shifted, becoming less a weapon and more a confession neither knew how to finish. She finally turned to him, voice trembling. The appointment wasn't supposed to happen like that. None of this was. He leaned back, heart pounding, realizing how little of her inner world he'd ever been allowed to enter. He He wanted to demand everything, to rip the truth out fully formed. Instead, he asked the one question that mattered. Is the secret going to destroy us? She hesitated, and that hesitation told him enough. Tears spilled freely now, her composure gone. She admitted the truth was bigger than their marriage, tangled in legal lines and professional boundaries, bound to consequences she'd been warned never to trigger. "If it comes out," she whispered, "someone will make sure I regret it." The room felt suddenly unsafe, every shadow sharp. He thought of the man in the alley, the doctor's careful words, the message about death. Patterns were forming, dark and deliberate. This wasn't just about betrayal or trust anymore. It was about power. He reached for her hand, and for the first time she didn't pull away. Her grip was desperate, grounding. In that moment, he understood the silence had never been empty. It had been holding back something dangerous, something waiting. And as they sat there, bound together by fear instead of love, a truth settled between them. Whatever she was hiding, it wasn't finished with them yet.
Sleep never came that night. What rested beside him wasn't peace, only exhaustion pretending to be calm. Morning arrived quietly, as if aware it wasn't welcome. She sat at the kitchen table when he woke, hands wrapped around a cold mug, eyes rimmed red. There was no television noise, no phone between them. The silence felt intentional now, an agreement finally broken. "I need to tell you everything," she said before he could speak. Her voice didn't shake this time. That frightened him more than tears. She started with the appointment, explaining what the doctor had seen and why the timeline mattered. A medical condition, rare but undeniable, one that exposed a truth she'd spent years burying. The results didn't just contradict her words, they rewrote the past. They proved that a moment she had sworn never existed was very real. He listened, jaw tight, as she spoke about a night she barely remembered clearly, clouded by stress, medication, and pressure she hadn't known how to name back then. She had gone to someone she trusted for help, someone who had authority, knowledge, and access, someone who had crossed a line she didn't fully understand until it was already behind her. The test confirmed it, she said quietly, and he knew it would. The word "he" landed between them like a loaded weapon. She finally said the doctor's name, and the sound of it felt wrong in the kitchen, too heavy for daylight. She explained how he had framed everything as discretion, as protection, how he had warned her that exposure would ruin her reputation, her marriage, her future. At the time, silence had felt like the only option that kept her life intact. The secret hadn't stayed dormant, it had grown roots. The doctor checked in under the guise of care, then concern, then control. Favors were implied, consequences outlined. Every interaction reminded her that the truth belonged to him more than her. When the recent appointment forced the issue back into the open, panic followed fast. "That's why he wasn't supposed to say anything," she whispered. "He broke his own rules." The husband leaned back, heart pounding, a strange numbness spreading through him. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't betrayal in the way he had imagined. It was something murkier, more corrosive. He felt anger, but it didn't have a clean target. Rage tangled with guilt, sympathy fighting disgust. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked. She met his eyes finally. "Because you would have tried to fix it, and he promised that if you did, someone would pay for it." The room seemed to contract around them. He thought of the alley, the man's warning, the phrase about death spoken so casually. Pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The secret wasn't just personal, it was criminal. A knock at the door made them both flinch. It was only a delivery, a mistake, nothing. Still, the fear lingered long after the door closed. She pressed her palms flat against the table, grounding herself. "There's more," she said. "The doctor kept records, notes he wasn't supposed to have. He said they protected him."
That night, her phone rang, one number, unsaved. She answered on speaker, hands trembling. The doctor's voice was calm, almost gentle. He said they needed to talk urgently. There had been an error. Things were moving faster than expected. He asked her to come by his office after hours. When the call ended, neither of them spoke. They both understood what it meant. This wasn't a request. It was a reminder of who still held power. "You can't go alone," the husband said. She nodded, but fear flickered across her face. He said not to bring anyone. The implications settled heavily between them. Whatever was about to happen wasn't contained anymore. The secret had reached a breaking point, and pressure was building from every side. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, fading quickly. The husband stood, grabbing his keys, decision already made. If this ends tonight, it ends with the truth. Neither of them knew then that by morning, someone would be dead. Morning arrived with sirens and rumors. By the time the husband learned the doctor was dead, the city already felt suspiciously loud. Police cars lined the street outside the clinic, red and blue washing over brick walls that had never mattered before. The appointment that exposed everything now framed the crime scene photographs spreading quietly online. He sat at the kitchen table, answering questions he hadn't prepared for. Detectives spoke gently, professionally, writing notes as if his marriage were a case file. They asked when he'd last seen the doctor, when he'd left the house, why his phone showed movement near the clinic after hours. He explained the call, the urgency, the fear, leaving out the parts that felt impossible to prove. His wife stayed silent beside him, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her grief looked real, but even grief could be interpreted. Officers noticed the tremor in her voice, the way she avoided direct answers. They asked about her relationship with the doctor. She said, patient. They asked again. She said, complicated. Everyone had a reason. The doctor's staff whispered about complaints, about records kept too carefully. The mysterious man from the alley surfaced in traffic footage near the area, his presence raising more questions than answers. Even the husband felt the weight of suspicion settle on him, heavy and unavoidable. Rage, motive, proximity, the list built itself. Evidence emerged in fragments, a broken lamp in the office, a smear of blood not matching initial assumptions, a missing file from a locked cabinet. Investigators began to realize the death wasn't random nor clean. Someone had been desperate enough to confront the doctor and desperate enough to make mistakes. At the station, the husband watched his reflection in the interrogation glass, barely recognizing himself. He answered calmly, methodically, but inside his thoughts spiraled. He replayed every step of the night before, every choice, every word spoken. He wondered how guilt could exist even when innocence remained uncertain. His wife was questioned separately. When she returned, her face was drained of color. She whispered that the doctor had threatened exposure days earlier, that he'd hinted at ruining multiple lives. She admitted others had reasons to silence him. The truth, she said, was bigger than either of them. By evening, the media arrived. Headlines formed narratives before facts could catch up. A jealous husband, a corrupt doctor, a patient with secrets. The story reshaped itself hourly, each version more dangerous than the last. The husband understood then that motive didn't need proof to become truth. As night fell, an officer quietly informed him that security footage placed his car near the clinic after midnight. The detail was delivered without accusation, but accusation lived inside it anyway. The husband nodded, hiding the chill crawling up his spine. He felt watched even when alone, replaying conversations, measuring his reactions, wondering which version of himself others now believed. Because he knew the investigation wasn't closing in on the truth yet, it was closing in on him.
The suspicion didn't leave when the police did. It lingered in the corners of the house, in the pauses between breaths, in the way silence now sounded accusatory. The husband began to narrate his own life unconsciously, replaying conversations as if someone were listening, judging every tone, every hesitation. Sleep fractured into short, shallow pieces, dreams bleeding into waking thought. He started doubting memory itself. Had he really gone straight home that night, or only believed he had? Time felt elastic, bending under pressure. He remembered gripping the steering wheel, remembered anger tightening his chest, but the exact order of events blurred. The more he tried to hold the timeline steady, the more it slipped. His wife watched him carefully. She asked gentle questions, offered reassurance, but he sensed calculation behind her concern. Not manipulation exactly, but fear searching for stability. They were both measuring him now, she and the world, weighing whether he could be trusted with the truth they shared. During the day, he found himself staring at nothing, lost in internal arguments. At night, his thoughts turned darker, looping through imagined confrontations with the doctor. He pictured raised voices, threats, moments of restraint snapping. He hated how easily his mind supplied those images, how natural they felt. The realization frightened him more than suspicion ever could. The police called again, asking for clarification. Small details this time, his tone, his movements, whether he'd spoken to anyone else that night. Each question chipped away at his confidence. He began answering before they finished, trying to stay ahead of conclusions he couldn't see. When the call ended, his hands were shaking. His wife left that evening to clear her head. He told himself to trust her, but trust had become fragile. Hours passed. When she returned, her eyes were red, her composure brittle. She sat across from him and whispered that she'd met the man from the alley again. He'd been nervous, erratic, convinced the police were close. "He thinks you did it," she said. The words landed harder than accusation. Someone else believed the story forming around him, someone dangerous. He asked what she told the man. She hesitated, then admitted she'd said nothing definitive, only that everything felt out of control. That answer offered no comfort. Later, alone in the bathroom, he stared at his reflection, searching for signs of guilt written on his face. He practiced expressions, calm, grief, confusion, unsure which version would be needed next. The exercise made him feel unmoored, like an actor forgetting which role was real. That night, he dreamed of the clinic hallway, endless and narrowing, doors closing as he approached, lights flickering out one by one. Somewhere ahead, someone was crying, repeating his name. He woke with his heart racing, the echo of her voice still sharp. In the darkness, he understood something had fractured inside him. Whether innocent or not, he was no longer whole. The pressure was changing him, reshaping thought into instinct, instinct into possibility. Down the hall, his wife lay awake, phone glowing faintly in her hands. A single message blinked on the screen before she locked it away. "I think my husband already killed someone." The night stretched long and merciless. Shadows crept along the walls as if moving independently, testing the edges of reality. The husband replayed every step of that evening in agonizing detail, yet the harder he tried, the more it fragmented. The driveway, the clinic, the alley, all blurred together like broken film. He could remember the sound of her voice and the scrape of shoes on concrete, but the sequence of events remained elusive. It began with her call, the one she had whispered into her phone hours before. She had hesitated, as if weighing whether to obey, whether to resist. In the dim light of their kitchen, he insisted he accompany her. She shook her head, but fear laced every movement. He drove in silence, both of them too tense to speak, each turn of the wheel echoing with unspoken dread. The clinic loomed like a monument of inevitability. Security lights glared down, casting long, accusing shadows across the asphalt. She hesitated at the door, thumb hovering over the lock, glancing at him as if to ask permission. Permission was impossible. What needed doing was no longer choice.
Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and secrets. The hallway was narrower than he remembered, lined with closed doors hiding histories he wasn't meant to know. The doctor's office door was open just a crack, light spilling into the corridor. A figure moved inside, careful, deliberate. The husband's pulse hammered in his ears as he considered the possibilities: confrontation, confession, murder. She whispered his name, urging caution, but the warning came too late. The doctor turned, calm, almost unnervingly composed. He didn't raise his voice. Words were exchanged, clipped and precise. He demanded explanations, assurances, and accounting that was never coming. Their voices escalated in tension, low at first, then sharper, shaking the quiet like a storm. The husband stepped forward instinctively. In a flash, the calm fractured. A push, a stumble, a hand reaching for a table lamp. The motion was instantaneous, chaotic yet deliberate. The lamp fell, striking the floor, shattering with a crack that echoed through the office. The doctor moved quickly, then stopped, eyes wide. There was a scream, hers, piercing the night, cutting through everything. In that moment, the world slowed. His mind separated the sound into fragments: the crash of glass, the doctor's exclamation, her cry, and then the final, sickening silence. Heart racing, hands trembling, he realized something irreversible had occurred. Blood marked the carpet, a silent testimony to chaos and fear. The room, once familiar and clinical, had transformed into a scene of accusation, guilt, and inevitability. He tried to process, to act, but memories refused order. The doctor's expression shifted: shock, confusion, and then something unreadable, almost grim acceptance. Words escaped him, falling into the silence that followed. She was crouched beside the body, tears spilling freely, unable to speak. The man in the shadows, the warnings, the threats, they had all converged into the singular, terrifying moment. Outside, the night felt impossibly quiet. No sirens yet, no flashing lights, only the occasional distant hum of a car engine and the oppressive weight of culpability. He glanced at her face. Fear and disbelief warred with the knowledge that everything had escalated beyond comprehension. He realized that even if no one else arrived, their lives were now marked forever by this night. He called his wife's name. She looked up, eyes wide, searching for guidance, for explanation, for absolution. But none existed. Only the stark truth remained. Someone had died, and the chains of secrecy, fear, and control had led them here. Minutes stretched. Each tick of the clock sounded like judgment. The husband felt the full weight of consequence pressing against him. The doctor's warnings, the alley, the messages, all came together in a dizzying clarity. The secret had erupted violently, and there was no containing it. When he reached out for her, she flinched, and that flinch carried an unspoken question: what now? Outside the office, faint footsteps echoed, and the distinct sound of a door closing somewhere down the hall. Someone else had been here. Someone else had seen. The night was far from over. And as they stood over the body, the husband realized, whether through accident, fear, or fate, the collision of secrets and actions had just begun to reveal who really held power. This night wouldn't just change them, it would change everything around them, and no one would emerge untouched.
Morning came with a gray, oppressive light that seemed to press against the walls of their apartment. Neither of them slept. His hands were still shaking from the night before, his mind replaying every movement, every sound, every fragment of the doctor's terrified expression. Outside, the city carried on, indifferent to the fracture that had entered their lives. He wondered how normal life could continue when theirs had already been destroyed. The wife sat across from him at the table, a mug of cold coffee forgotten in her hands. Her eyes were hollow yet alert, calculating, as if weighing what to reveal and what to withhold. "We have to tell someone," he said quietly, almost pleading. The police, the truth, everything. She shook her head. Not yet. If we do, it'll ruin more than us. Others will suffer. You have no idea how far this goes. Her words landed like stones in his chest. He had expected guilt, fear, perhaps even lies, but not this, a reminder that their private terror had layers he couldn't yet see. She began to explain the doctor's hidden files, the manipulation, the careful construction of evidence, and the shadow network that had been observing them long before the appointment. Each revelation tightened the knot in his stomach. It's not just him, she said, voice trembling. There are people who benefit from silence, people who will stop at nothing. He stared at her, struggling to grasp the immensity of it. Every piece of the puzzle seemed to multiply when held under the harsh light of her confession. Betrayal, fear, manipulation, all interconnected. He realized that the last 2 weeks, the obsession with tracking her movements, the messages, even the alleyway encounter, had been only the tip of a far larger, more dangerous reality. They went over the night again, piece by piece, attempting clarity, but fragments refused to align neatly. He saw her fear anew, the desperate caution in her voice when she spoke to the man from the shadows, and understood that his anger, his judgment, had been premature. Survival dictated every action she'd taken. I can't protect you from all of it, she said, finally letting herself break. But I can protect us if we're careful, if we move quietly, strategically. He felt the weight of helplessness crush him. The truth wasn't comforting, it wasn't justice, it was a liability, a weapon that could harm anyone who held it. Every revelation carried a price, and he began to understand that the cost wasn't just their marriage, not just their peace of mind, it was lives. Outside, the world remained indifferent, the sun rising over streets that would never know the battles waged in shadows. He saw their reflections in the window, 2 people bound by fear, guilt, and love that had been reshaped into something unrecognizable. The man he had been, the protector, was gone, replaced by someone forced to calculate, anticipate, survive. She reached across the table, and for a fleeting moment their hands touched. It was both comforting and terrifying. She whispered a single sentence that made him flinch. If the truth comes out wrong, it won't just be the doctor or the man who pays. It'll be us. He realized that justice, exposure, honesty, all of it had become relative. There was no moral clarity, only survival and strategy. Their choices had consequences far beyond their control. The police, the media, the man in the shadows, all of them were pieces in a game where the rules were invisible, and failure could be fatal. The husband took a deep breath, steadying himself. He understood now that knowing the truth wasn't relief, it was a responsibility, and responsibility carried a cost higher than he had ever imagined. Outside, the city hummed, unaware of the ticking clock that measured their lives in seconds of tension, waiting for the next move. The next step was clear. They had to act, and the first action would determine who survived, who fell, and what the world would see when the full truth finally emerged. The night had taught him one lesson. Sometimes the truth costs everything. And now they were about to pay the price. The air outside was heavy with tension, carrying the remnants of a storm that had passed unseen, yet left every shadow sharper. News of the doctor's death had spread like wildfire, each retelling more speculative than the last. Police lines, cameras, and whispers crowded the streets near the clinic, but inside their apartment, silence pressed harder than any siren. The husband sat at the edge of the couch, staring at a wall that seemed suddenly unfamiliar. Justice, he realized, wasn't a tidy line drawn by law or morality. It was a blur, a shifting battlefield where decisions had consequences far beyond the people involved. The doctor was dead, the man in the alley had vanished, and yet nothing felt resolved. She entered the room quietly, holding a folder that she had retrieved from a hidden drawer. Documents the doctor never meant anyone to see.
Each page contained meticulous records, appointments, notes, messages, evidence of manipulation, of coercion. The husband took the folder from her trembling hands, flipping through it slowly. Every line deepened the shadow over their lives. They were holding proof, but proof didn't guarantee safety. "They'll come for it," she said, softly, voice cracking. "They'll come for us, too." He looked up. Fear flickered across her face, mirrored in the dim reflection of the window. He understood immediately. The doctor's network, the man in the alley, the people invested in his silence, all still active. Justice hadn't arrived. It had only started to point fingers. Hours later, the first knock came. It was polite, professional, but the weight behind it made their hearts race. When the door opened, 2 detectives stood there, badges glinting under the faint hallway light. They asked questions carefully, probing for inconsistencies. The husband answered as calmly as he could, hiding the torrent of thought behind a mask of reason. She stood beside him, shoulders tight, eyes fixed on the floor. They spoke of evidence, of witness reports, of the lingering threat of the man in the shadows, and the husband realized then that even law enforcement could not cleanly separate truth from suspicion. Every statement they made contained ambiguity. Every procedure carried risk. Justice wasn't blind. It was pragmatic, selective, and painfully slow. Later, in the quiet of the evening, the husband replayed the previous nights in his mind, examining each choice, each hesitation. He saw how easily intentions twisted into actions, how fear could guide behavior as much as reason. The weight of responsibility pressed down. He and his wife were no longer merely witnesses. They were participants, actors in a story that had spiraled beyond their control. Her voice broke through his reverie. "We have to protect ourselves," she whispered. "If we try to expose everything, if we go to the police with what we really know, it could backfire. We could end up like him." She nodded toward the folder. "This is dangerous in the wrong hands." He nodded, swallowing hard. Justice had no guarantees. It couldn't undo what had been done. It couldn't bring clarity or absolution. All it could do was demand a reckoning, and reckonings were never clean. The night deepened around them. The city hummed with life, indifferent to the moral quagmire unfolding in the apartment above. Every shadow outside seemed heavier, every sound more ominous. They were no longer merely married. They were conspirators in survival, bound by fear, knowledge, and the chilling realization that the line between right and wrong was thinner than they had imagined. Finally, she reached for his hand. It was tentative, fragile, but it grounded him. "We can't undo it," she said, "but we can control what comes next." He understood. Justice wasn't about clearing guilt. It wasn't about closure. It was about choices and consequences and the courage to act when the world offered no certainty. Outside, a figure moved in the shadows, silent and watchful. Someone else knew. Someone else waited. The husband and his wife were no longer safe in the neat compartments of law or morality. They had stepped into the gray, where survival demanded cunning, and justice, when it came, would not be clean. And in that gray, the next move would determine everything: who survived, who fell, and what the world would see when the full truth finally emerged. It started with a message he wasn't supposed to see. She had left her phone unattended for a moment, and curiosity, sharp and insistent, pushed him to glance. The screen illuminated a line of text that changed everything. A confession, precise and damning, written in her own hand on a note she hadn't destroyed. Her stomach knotted, pulse spiking. The secrets, the lies, the careful balancing of their lives, all of it collapsed in an instant. He sank into the couch, reading and rereading, trying to reconcile the woman beside him with the one whose words stared back from the screen. Betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been patient, silent, thriving in corners he'd ignored. Names, dates, Encounters he hadn't questioned before leapt into focus. The doctor, the man in the alley, the messages, the warnings, all connected in a pattern he hadn't been ready to see. She entered the room then, soft steps on the hardwood, unaware of what he had discovered. He looked